Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Smarter Sourcing Healthcare Supply Chain Edition. I'm your host, Eric O'Daffer, and this is a podcast where we talk about issues that are facing healthcare supply chain leaders today. And today, I have the great pleasure to be joined by Jim Francis, the chair of Mayo Clinic's supply chain. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Eric. Glad to be with you.
And hey, everybody. This is a real treat. Jim is a legend. We are going to cover a lot of space, so hold on to your hat. We're going to be moving and talking about things from strategy to collaboration to commercialization, leadership. So lots of topics to cover. Jim's a wealth of information and perspective on supply chain. And we'll also get to kind of how Jim's thinking about the future at the end of this. But first question, Jim, is how do you have a unique title and that you are supply chain chair, I think one of one in the country. What does that title mean? I've always kind of wondered, you're the chair of supply chain. What does that mean in Mayo Clinic's world?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Eric. It's an interesting title because it's hard to find another one like it in the industry. What I would tell you is that Mayo is an academic institution. So not only do we have the chair of supply chain management, so it's like being the chair of a department in an academic institution, but also there are academic rank that's capable of being achieved at Mayo too. So besides being the chair of supply chain management, I'm also the assistant professor in healthcare administration. So I have an academic title to academic rank.
Are you ever teaching as part of that role?
Yeah, actually we do on occasion get involved in things. A lot of it is outside of the organization, so professional societies or associations. But also we do some internal talent development where we're, if you will, sharing our insights on, in my case, my management with potential future up-and-comers at Mayo. So, in fact, here in about a month, I'll be teaching a course on supply chain management at our Florida campus.
Great. Well, lucky students to get to learn from you. And I want to talk to you a little bit about generosity. And I've got a story to tell. Usually I'm asking questions and just having conversation, but you've been generous with me and certainly with the industry. I think a lot of people have had that experience, with you. But I'm a brand new analyst on my first week of the job at Gardner. I didn't know a lot about it. It's an interesting job to be a research person. And my boss at the time, Hussein Miraj, looks at me and he goes, "O'Daffer, call somebody that you know that knows something about healthcare supply chain who might be doing something innovative." I had not talked to you in a decade. I had been off working in the physician office space, and I called you out of the blue, like under pressure. I'm like, oh, I know Jim. I guess I'll call him. Luckily you responded like that afternoon. Called us back. We talked about what was the Upper Midwest Consolidated Service Center at the time, now Captus. And I think it ended up becoming my first research note, but I was always super appreciative of that callback. And as I talk to people about you, everybody has that experience. Hey, Jim took time out of his day to help advance the industry. How do you balance a job as big as Mayo's in running supply chain and that kind of generosity to the industry, to players in all different capacities?
Well, first, I would say your memory's a lot better than mine, Eric. So thanks for sharing that story. Well, what I would tell you is that my first mentor, who was exceptional, instilled in me that we work in a very small industry. And many people that you encounter, whether it be a very brief moment or continuously over several period of time, basically we're going to be there and you're going to encounter them. So never burn a bridge was his first piece of advice. And then he also said, you can always take time to help somebody. You're in healthcare. It's about helping people. So he just instilled the entire importance of relationship management in me. And I've tried to practice that my entire career. And I just find time for it. Honestly, in certain positions like chief supply chain officer roles, you are very busy. But I think I've always found time, and I'd like to think others could too, that if you could help somebody, you should reach out and an opportunity to help educate, help them achieve what they're trying to achieve going forward. It's just what I've practiced in my career.
Yeah, well, mission accomplished. You've done it. You've been recognized for it. It seems like everybody's just trying to find ways to say thank you back for the leadership that you've provided, and it's all very well deserved. And maybe we start to tackle and delve into some of our topics because if I'm out there in the audience, I've watched you at kind of point blank range and seen what you've been able to do. But first topic for me is strategy. Literally the most consistent organization that I've seen in the healthcare supply chain of building a strategy, developing it, modifying it, keeping it current. What's been your process? How do you do it? What's been the importance of it? Share with our audience how you've done that.
Yeah, honestly, Eric, I can't think of anything more important than having a well executed strategic plan. I've been at Mayo 27 years, and when I came here, there was no strategic plan for supply chain, which was not uncommon in healthcare. But it's one of the first things that we did was to craft a strategic plan, and then it is annually updated. It provides clear choices about why you exist, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and what it's going to take, and I think most people understand the components in the and the importance of them, but at the end of the day, it's then becomes one of execution on how well you execute on that strategic plan. And if you do it correctly and well, you're going to involve key stakeholders in it. It's going to be aligned with the strategic plan of the organization, and it's going to spell out very specifically what you want to get accomplished in the defined time frame and how you'll know whether or not you've had success. So it brings clarity, it aligns action, and it just simply results in disciplined follow through for the entire team. And that's how we judge a lot of our success and the progress that we've made over the years.
What percent of it's art and what percent is science as you do it and methodology?
I would tell you that I think the majority of it is art. I think it takes a lot of talented people to contribute and build that strategic plan, but a lot of it is art. And I think it's largely related to the vision you have of where you want to take your supply chain to. So science is an important part of it. Increasingly, we can't really measure progress if we don't have some science behind it and also understand the metrics that we want to monitor. But I think the large part of it is art.
Yeah, I would agree. In watching you, I'd always be surprised because it was methodical and iterative, but there's always creativity that would go into it and a lot of the new things that you developed and introduced and broke new ground. And I don't know, maybe we won't like this question, but biggest successes and biggest failures that came out of that process, things that just worked way better than you ever thought, and things that you were like, "Ooh, we tried that, but not so great."
Yeah, I would say that some of our biggest successes has been around the area of just continually improving year to year and making progress of where we want to take our supply chain to. And we've seen that repetitively happen. One such area is the whole area of commercialization and what we wanted to accomplish in commercialization, and we've had great success. We've had a few failures in that space too. I think there are some keys to what makes a commercial business successful, which most supply chains don't engage in. But we've had the benefit of doing that and also beneficial to our operation as a result of it. So,
Well, let's dig in a little bit there because commercialization, and lots of people have bounced their ideas off me over the years, and usually I'm like the wet blanket because selling it and servicing it is the hardest part of that component for many. Doing it yourself is one thing, selling it to somebody else is another. But you talked about three keys. What are those three keys? And maybe even what was the catalyst to get it started for you, and then three keys to success.
probably like every supply chain operation, many years ago, we were asked, and we continue to be asked on an annual basis as part of the budgeting planning process, where can you save money and cut expenses and become more efficient? that's normal course of business in healthcare. That we realized, and I think our oldest business today is about 18 years old. We realized then that there's two ways to approach that. You can either cut expenses, which largely means people, because they are our biggest expense item in running the supply chain, or you can generate revenue. And we decided to generate revenue. So we started our commercial journey 18 years ago. And today, our commercial journey is reflected in kind of our vision. Here's part of that strategic planning link that we just talked about, where we're trying to become self-sufficient. And what I mean by that is that we bring in enough revenue to offset the expenses of running the supply chain. We'll never offset, obviously, all the cost of pharmaceuticals and things like that, but the operating cost, again, which is largely people. And over the years that we've been doing this, we've now been able to offset about 73% of our operating expenses. So we've made a lot of progress. So we have 8 commercial businesses. What I would tell you is some of the keys to the success of that is don't approach it with a me too. I want to do this because so-and-so system is doing it and I know I can do it myself. I've always said that if we want to help the industry progress and we want to have a presence in some commercial space, we have to have a unique offering. Because as you alluded to, Eric, selling to healthcare is tough. I've always been on the buy side of the house. And I've got plenty of people wanting to sell me things or sell Mayo things. But I would tell you that it is a tough business. You're on the sell side trying to sell healthcare facilities. And so it helps when you have not a me too. It helps when you have something unique that's differentiating in the industry and can bring new value. So that's one absolute key that we have been successful at in terms of some of the things that we've developed. I would also tell you that another key is you got to have people that know that commercial business. You just can't hire somebody and say, go run this if they have little experience or no experience. They need to understand it. And one of our biggest areas is our retail DME and medical supply stores. Hiring expertise in that area, subject matter experts, been key. The other thing I would tell you too is many healthcare organizations feel the need to capitalize certain projects because you need resources to do it. We have a tendency in our supply chain to take things out of hide. So additional people in the leadership.
What does taken out of hide mean?
Means that you're going to take on additional responsibility and you're going to see if you can get this operationally to the point of break even or better before we decide to put dedicated resources in it. So we do that all internally, and it enables us to prove it before we have to make major investments and incur some kind of debt with it. So those are some of the key factors I think we've experienced.
Yeah, no, and it's been good lessons for the industry and what you've done. A lot of people look at Captus and think it's just a GPO and it's got other pieces of it, but definitely concur with peer to peer. Selling as a peer to a peer is really, really hard. It's just difficult, and that investment to think about somebody who's running and thinking about the science of growing a business and servicing a business is different than just creating it. So you've been you've leveraged partners and just been a master at doing that. So and it's helped the industry. So kudos to you. Let's talk a little bit about collaboration. You've been, I think, a hallmark of Jim Francis is partnership, sustained long-term partnerships in many cases. Obviously you and I are on the collaboration council together for SMI, and that's a passion. How have you thought about that and implemented it at Mayo as effectively as you have over as many years as you have?
Yeah, I've already kind of shared with you the importance of maintaining relationships, and they're lifelong or at least career long while you're in this business. And those have been equally rewarding to me as hopefully I've helped some people too across the industry. My personal opinion is I don't think we do enough collaboration in our industry today. You know, the problems we face are often common problems that both the industry partners and providers face. And we could do a better job of working together to try to resolve those issues through collaboration efforts. And as you mentioned, we do a lot of that in SMI, and we share a lot of work that's underway as examples of institutions that are collaborating with one another. My feeling is that there's a lot more we can do as it relates to collaboration. You know, I think it helps us think better when we collaborate. I think it helps us move faster, and it certainly builds more trust between trading partners when we do it together. So I think there's opportunity for us to work together and approach some of these issues or challenges that we have as an industry. The only thing I would add to is I wish a lot of the collaboration efforts were focused on industry solutions as opposed to, again, I'm going to say that words I used just a little while ago, me too. Let's go build our own when we really need probably an industry solution that we can all get behind and utilize. A lot of current work is in the area of building transparency and visibility up and down the supply chain. I'd like to think that if we can develop some industry standards around that, there's probably tools that we can collaborate on that would work well for the majority of the healthcare industry as opposed to everybody kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah. Well, and you've put your money where your mouth is on that in several instances. Probably Herc, one of the more public ones, as a not-for-profit that Mayo Clinic founded, and that you funded early, helped fund early. So kudos there. What's the role of patience in these collaborative partnerships? You're not suffering fools lightly, and yet I've seen you be very patient with your partners over time. What's that role, and how have you balanced patience with, expectations, I guess?
Great question. I think that's part of my DNA, first of all. I don't get rattled by much. I try to stay calm and recognize that the end result we're all working for here is improvement, maybe not the ultimate answer. I will tell you personally, nothing moves fast enough for me, but I don't reflect that when I'm working with a potential partner on something or a group effort. We really want to elevate the work. We want to be good listeners. We want to give credit where credit's due. And at the end of the day, the relationships that we build are more important than anything else because you never know what you're going to need that trading partner again for something else.
So let's shift to leadership. So 26 years at the helm of Mayo Clinic Supply Chain as the chair. What's the benefit of that kind of tenure? And as well, I mean, the tenure of many of your first line leaders in supporting that mission. What's been the value of that sustained effort, I guess?
I have been fortunate. I have a few basic principles around leadership. And, first and foremost, I believe in hiring the best people I can find and recognizing that you're going to be on a journey together and a journey that's guided by that strategic plan. But you want to build loyalty with those people. And I've been very fortunate to have very loyal employees. In fact, since I've been at Mayo, one of my key employees has been here 25 of the 26 years that I've been here. So I've been very fortunate with that. I would tell you that loyalty is really about trust and mutual respect. And it takes time to build that. And if you do it and do it well, recognizing that it can be lost pretty quickly at any time, you'll have employees that value the relationship and they eventually become very proud to belong as part of the supply chain operation. And if we're fortunate, which we've been fortunate to experience, we've been recognized for that excellence. And that's part of that pride that I enjoy in being part of the operation too.
Yeah, no, definitely a strong team and a sustained effort. It's impressive. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. And maybe we'll start before we go to like pure future, like next 5 years. It feels in many of these discussions, I'm talking to people that are going, hey, things have changed in the very short term. The financial pressures feel different than they have. Is that, is that coming to roost at Mayo Clinic? And for you, are you feeling different level of financial pressure than you felt in the past?
Yeah, I think there's still a certain amount of uncertainty associated with it because it's evolving. But one thing we can say about healthcare, and I think you know this as well as anybody, it's not boring. There's always something new that's going on, or something that we need to focus on, or we need to midstream correction and move faster. There are a lot of pressures in the industry right now. And some institutions are feeling a significant amount of pressure. You know, it's a continuation of how can we contribute, and most often that's around helping reduce costs. Historically, we've done that through better negotiations and price decreases, but it's spreading, meaning it's now tipping over into purchase services and indirect spend management, a variety of other areas to make contributions. I've always told my staff that you're really enablers of patient care delivery. And if you don't think you're important, don't deliver supplies to a particular area and you'll find out how important you are. So we make multiple contributions to that, but the focus is on taking care of patients and making sure they have it, our caregivers making sure they have what they need to take care of those patients.
And are you in indirect spend, are you having to think about it different, right? So a lot of that has historically been governance issues, supply chain, not even, kind of at the table to kind of help in those categories. Are you thinking about that differently these days?
Yeah, most definitely. It is an area that traditionally I would say has not been in supply chain management. It's been in a departmental level, but while we've always been engaged to some degree on the contracting side of the equation, we've not been on the forefront as much as we could in helping select the sourcing side of that equation before you get to a contract. So what we're trying to do is shift the paradigm a little bit to where we're more involved in the front end of activities of identifying alternative sources, doing competitive work, like a competitive bid, but then helping contract for that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the front end listening has been the hardest part because it's not in the governance, but glad to hear that shifting and
Pretty significant change management activities too.
yeah, got to get everybody used to a new stakeholder in town. So we'll cap it off with kind of the future of supply chain and what you're seeing. So, another area that the Mayo Clinic led in is kind of the digital supply chain revolution, maybe in the late 2010s. I think you got really serious about thinking about data and the different places it came from and how to think about it, holistically, probably ahead of most anyway. What do the next 3 to 5 years bring? How are you thinking about AI? How are you thinking about, expanded partnerships in technology? What's the roadmap for the next 3 to 5?
Great question, Eric. And I tell you, this is another area I've been truly blessed to have very capable people that help draft and articulate a strategy around digital transformation in our supply chain. And they, several years ago, defined for the organization what a platform looks like in supply chain and kind of what the various technologies are that are going to be needed to help enable that. But there's no question that, I was listening to one of our leaders here at Mayo Clinic the other day said, and he said, futuristic AI automation is tomorrow's reality. And that's how fast it's moving. And it is. I think all of us recognize that it's moving incredibly fast. I also listened to a presentation by Gartner, And the analogy he was talking about was how fast the technology's evolved in automobiles that we drive today. And I have a truck that drives itself if I want to. And, it sometimes causes me to have my heart beat faster when I let it do that. But it just shows you how fast this is moving. And every organization I talk to nowadays has a very strong push, including our own, on automation as much as possible. I think we're talking about, automation and capability that will enhance human interaction, increase productivity and efficiency. Whether or not we'll see it in my remaining career about replacing humans with automation or agentic AI automation, I'm a little skeptical, but it's certainly moving in that direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's moving fast, and there's people that are on the train, kind of holding on, and then there's people that aren't on the train yet, and we're gonna see. I think it's another kind of chasm here of haves and have-nots in the healthcare supply chain world. Before we close here, Jim, any parting thoughts from you? You've been super generous with your time. These are great, learnings from you to our audience today.
Well, I just go back to the fact that in the 42 years that I've been in healthcare, I've seen an incredible amount of change. And I can tell you that for the most part, that's been positive, but it's accelerating. And I think supply chain is an incredibly rewarding career for many people in healthcare and can be. So,
Well, amazing. Well, people always talk about healthcare as an industry being different, right? One of the differences is that we share an organization. They're generous with each other. You are the absolute embodiment of that ability to achieve high for your organization and to share and lead the industry. I thank you for it on behalf of everyone, and just want to say thank you to you for joining us today. On behalf of Jim Francis and Eric O'Dafford, this has been Smarter Sourcing Healthcare edition, and everybody have a great day.